Well, Oilers fans, the draft has come and gone, free agency has come and gone, and we've just about wrapped up the summer festivities here. And quite honestly, it's been one of the busiest off seasons I would say that the Oilers have had in quite a while. The biggest story, obviously, Mike Babcock being hired as the head coach, DJ Smith being brought in as the assistant coach. They've had some history back with Detroit. And with that, real competition is starting to begin. Training camp's going to open in a little bit. Roster spots are going to be up for grabs. And so today, I just wanted to kind of wrap up everything that happened over the summer, give you my thoughts on each of the moves made, the current projected roster as we head into camp. And then I'm actually going to show you how I would build this team if I were in Stan Bowman's position. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So obviously last season didn't end the way that we wanted it to. And with that, it's inevitable that changes had to be made, whether it was behind the bench, whether it was on the back end, in some cases, even on the front end. And, instead of another long playoff run, we came up short. And against a team I never would have expected us to kind of fall short too. And so some massive moves have been made. We'll start with the most obvious. We have a coaching change. We've already talked about this in a previous video. Mike Babcock and DJ Smith being brought in as head coach and assistant coach. And look, whether you love or hate this, the history there and the pedigree speaks for itself. You can look at all the questionable part of what happened in Columbus and in Toronto all you want. There's Stanley Cup championships there. In Detroit, there's Olympic championships, there's gold medals, World Hockey Championships, World Junior Championships. And at the end of the day as well, if what we heard over the summer is true with the core being McDavid, Draisaitl, and the rest being all in on Babcock being hired as the coach, you know what? So am I. McDavid's been a solid leader for the Oilers as long as he's been in Edmonton since the day he was drafted. And he's seen the ups and downs with this team. And with the last coach that he vouched for bringing in, being Chris Knobloch, we did go to 2 Stanley Cup finals, even with coming up short in both. We hadn't seen that happen for quite a while. So right now, yeah, I'm all in on Babcock. I'm trusting the judgment of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Even Zach Hyman said that, Babcock was really good for him when he was in Toronto. So right now, great move. Like I said, Babcock is won at every level. I'm not questioning too much here, but we'll see if, his old school style of coaching comes up to par since he hasn't been in the league for a few years. All right, so now let's look at the roster because you could say improvements were made and some changes were made around the edges with a couple of key trades happening this offseason. Obviously, the biggest one being Darnell Nurse, traded to San Jose, and in return, the Oilers received Shakir Mukhamadullin and Zach Sharp. And the trade I like actually even more here is the Devin Levi trade. So we acquired Devin Levi from the Buffalo Sabres. And in exchange, we sent a conditional 2028 7th round pick back to Buffalo. That, I think, was a great move. Devin Levi is a top goaltending prospect. It's something we desperately needed. I'd say that him and Connor Unger are probably going to be the tandem down in Bakersfield in the AHL this year. That has yet to be seeing what happens. There is speculation around goaltending for the year and who ends up with the starting job, who ends up with the backup job. We're going to take a look at that actually in just a minute here. I do have a few notes and graphics up on my laptop just to reference for you guys. Again, the other moves, obviously, the selections in the draft, big moves happening there. Obviously, Rudolph Bruce-Collins being the top highlighted draft pick for the Oilers. Whether he makes the team this year, I'm not 100% certain. But I can tell you one thing, is the one pick I actually do like that I believe is kind of a sleeper is the goaltending prospect Ryan Cameron. Now, I've heard mixed reviews on him, and I do want to bring up his page for a minute as we look into a little bit of his history and where he's been. Okay. Because last season, he may not have had the greatest of seasons. And it looks like this coming year, he'll be headed to Boston College to play for the Eagles. And it looks like, or sorry, that is 2027, 2028. He's committed to Boston College. 26, 27, he'll be back in the United States Hockey League with the Sioux Falls Stampede. A couple things I do want to point out, though. So obviously, last year, save percentage of 882, goals against average of 2.92, sitting under 3 there. A little bit of a concern with that. Didn't have a great showing with the U.S. national U17 team. But if we take it back a little bit to the 24-25 season with the Lone Star Brahmas in the North American Hockey League. Sorry for the mispronunciation there. It's been a long day. He did stand out there quite well. He had a 948 save percentage and a 1.24 goals against average. So there is a little bit of diamond in the rough potential there. If he gets on a good run, he might be something in the future for the Oilers. We'll see how he performs with Sioux Falls this year and how it goes with Boston College in 27-28. Definitely, I think, a goalie to keep an eye on. So looking at the roster for this coming season as we approach training camp here, not too many changes really up front. Just a couple notables. Obviously, the lines just through Puckpedia right now are being set as Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Hyman, Podkolzin, and Draisaitl, Savoy, Colton, Doc, I believe it's is it Jason Dickinson and Kasperi Kapanen, Joseph on the left wing on the fourth line, Matthias Janmark and Trent Frederick on the right side. Defensive pairings are looking like Ekholm and Bush, Woolman and Murphy, and Shea and Makamadulin. We'll see how those play out. Definite change on defense once we're looking a little bit deeper into it. And then there's been some rumors about goaltending here on who's going to be the starting goalie. Big pickup this offseason with Frederik Andersen coming off a Stanley Cup win with the Carolina Hurricanes, and Tristan Jarry, who didn't have a hot showing when he arrived in Edmonton last year. Wasn't too impressed with how that played out. Hopefully he can have a bounce back here and find his groove in Edmonton. And with up in the press box, it looks like we are going to carry Levi potentially as a third string goalie if we do, in fact, go with the 3 goalie option. Also sitting with Ty Emberson and Stastny as the extra defenseman. Okay. This is where there's going to be some heat in the comments, I think. We've looked at the rosters. We've looked at the moves made, new coaches. Here's where I'm going to show you what my moves would be. Again, we're going by Puckpedia. And these are just the moves I've made in the Babcock era if I were in Stan Bowman's position. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. taking a look at the depth chart, both in the NHL and in the minors as well. So not too many changes up front. Really, Nuge, McDavid, Hyman on the first line, Bunting, Draisaitl, Trent Frederic, Josh Szymanski, Jason Dickinson, Matthew Savoy, Vasily Podkolzin, Matthias Janmark, and Jaeger Furcus. So a few trades obviously being made, and a few free agent signings as well. I've always liked the way Michael Bunting plays. Josh Szymanski, I think it's time for him to get his shot in the NHL. Played really well alongside Leon Draisaitl at the Olympics. Really a great showing there, and I think he just needs that time to actually take his shot and be given that ice time. Then obviously on the back end here, it looks a little bit different. I've completely swapped out the goalies, and I actually did this depth chart before we acquired Levi and Anderson, so keep that in mind. So we have Ekholm and Bush, Mikey Anderson from the LA Kings, Connor Murphy, Jake Wallman, Ty Emerson, and Spencer Stastny as the 7th D, and Philip Gustafson and Connor Ingram as the goalies. Here's why I say this. Connor Ingram has stated outright that he wants to be an Edmonton Oiler. It's where he wants to play. He grew up in Saskatoon. He has been an Oilers fan since he was a kid. So the thing is here, he really is desperate to find his groove and make things work with the Oilers. Philip Gustafson, I did swap Tristan Jarry there. Gustafson has always been kind of a highlight reel goalie. Yes, he's had some ups and downs, but I think he deserves that starting shot. Now that Marc-Andre Fleury has retired, he's probably going to get that shot in Minnesota, but I think he'd be a really good fit in Edmonton. I think he would make a lot of sense to kind of have that long-term stability. He's only 28 years old right now, so he could fit in probably for the next 7 years, and I personally like that decision. Press box, extra forward, Noel Achari, and third goalie, Laurent Brossois. He's always kind of had a shadow backup role. Hasn't really been consistently in the NHL. He's been up and down. Kind of why he's in a third string position for me. Just, should something happen, the guy can come in and back up. And then in the minors is where we kind of get a little bit more interesting. A lot of the prospects and a little bit of veteran presence there just to kind of give a little bit of guidance and advice to the young guys. So Isaac Howard still down there, Colton Dock, James Steffen, who's still in our system. Connor Clattenburg, he might end up making the NHL this year, but for now, I still have him in the AHL. Signed Jack Studnicka as a free agent. Liked him when he was in the Boston system. Played really well in the AHL over there. He was a top prospect at one point. I still think he deserves that opportunity. Only 27 years old. Could be a good bolster in the minors. Prospect Brady Stonehouse, only 21. Keeping him around. Samuel Poulin, who came back in the Stuart Skinner trade last year. Dylan Wakely, he's currently at UMass Lowell. And once he makes that jump to pro hockey, I personally got to see him play in junior. I grew up in North Bay, Ontario, watching the battalion. I worked for the battalion for a couple years as a student. He's got a lot of skill to offer. He's a great two-way player. I think he'd make a solid addition to the Oilers one day, but of course, I would like to see him tested just at the pro level in the AHL with Bakersfield. And Aku Reddy, who we just got. Brought in Brendan Othman on a trade. I've seen him play as well when he was in the OHL with Flint, and I found him very good. I think there's a lot of potential there. He's still only 23, so yeah, I like it. And then Quinn Hudson, we do have him in the system on that right wing. Now, on the back end, I did sign Matt Benning, and I did bring back Cam Dineen, who was actually recently traded. He's no longer in the Oilers system, unfortunately. Another guy, kind of a little bit of bias by me from my hometown North Bay Battalion. Really solid showing there. Good reason why he was drafted. Hasn't really got a consistent shot in the NHL yet, but I think his time is coming. Riley Stillman, who's still in our system, Josh Brown, and Thomas Shibalka. Now, Miners goalies, bear with me here. Couple things. I would sign Matt Murray. He has Stanley Cup pedigree. He's recovered from hip surgery. He's fully healthy again. I think he still has some years left in him. He's still got a lot of veteran experience in the NHL. We've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst. It's a high ceiling and it's about a medium floor with him. You get a reliable goaltender, and I think he could be a solid starter in the AHL throughout this next season and even a couple seasons still. Backed up by Connor Unger and goaltending prospect out of the University of Michigan, Eric Portillo. I think it'd be a solid addition as well. Just all around great prospect, so much potential. So now, having gone through everything, I have a couple takeaways from how this summer went. So, number one, can this team start playing Mike Babcock's style of hockey where it's a more structured defensive game? Number two, can this roster stay healthy? If we stay healthy, I think there's a fighting shot there. I even think with a healthy Oilers team, and if the Florida Panthers manage to stay healthy with some of the additions they've made, we could end up seeing a round 3 in the Stanley Cup final. Just my prediction. Third question here is who earns the final roster spots? We kind of have an idea of who holds the core. The core is not really changing. There's a couple questions, I think, on the third and fourth line, maybe on the third defensive pairing, how that plays out, and ultimately who gets the starting goalie role and the backup role and the third string role. Obviously, what ties into that is, does our bottom six provide enough secondary scoring this year? Another big concern. And ultimately, I think the one thing we still have yet to see is whether or not in the McDavid era, can the Oilers put together a solid Stanley Cup run and actually lift Lord Stanley? I think overall, to wrap up the summer, wrap up this video, I like where this team sits right now. Obviously, there's no perfect team in the NHL unless, you're kind of looking at Florida or Vegas, it seems. And, every contender obviously has questions. If the coaching staff gets a buy-in from every guy on this team, there's a good chance. And there's no reason that we can't compete with every other team. Another big question is obviously with Toronto and bringing in Gavin McKenna, whether he performs in the NHL. If he does, there could be some trouble with Toronto. Obviously, they also brought in Sergei Bobrovsky, so we might even see an Edmonton-Toronto final. I could see that, honestly. But Toronto would obviously flop, as we obviously know they do. All right. That's going to do it for this video. If you like this video, make sure you say so by hitting the like button. If you want to see more and keep up as we keep track of the Oilers season, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss post-game analysis, opening for the season, and, overall thoughts after every game. We finally have our cable set up here so we can actually get going and watching games as the season starts. And I'll see you guys very soon.